Okay, so we have the last topic here on this ChangeCon 2019. I hope you had a good time. We'll conclude this session with a really interesting topic from Renato Ćurić. He's from King ICT. Let's give him a little applause, and thank you very much.
Thanks. So I'll give myself 20 minutes for this. There will be questions, I think. So it's a follow-up basically from a colleague that held how to test E2E with Protractor. I also made this presentation based on Protractor, but you can use any framework. I'll explain a little bit later. So let's start. Maybe a little background. I'm a DevOps engineer at King. I worked as a DevOps for the last 3 years. Before that, I was a system admin. So I have a background with Microsoft and Linux systems. So let's see the challenges. So when you try to build a testing framework or a testing solution, you basically focus on the tooling first. So what tools we need, what browsers are we going to test. So also the next one is keeping that stack consistent across the team, across the organization. So we all are on the same page, basically using the same stuff. Creating technical debt up front. So if we design our systems wrong at the start, we will create a lot of debt and we will drown in it, basically. We will waste resources. So the effort needed to implement all that is also very doubtfully. So we need to focus on the effort. We do not want to spend too much time on it. Developing a solution is going to be thrown away, and the complexity of it. So keep it as simple as possible. That would be the challenges. So for example, for the tooling, you would need browsers, build tools, some helper scripts, wrappers, hooks, anything like that. So let's continue. So how do we mitigate the problems? So we create little packages of the tooling. So we will basically bundle the stuff we need and distribute it to our developers or our CI systems. And yeah, getting on a common page in the team so we all understand what's happening there. Nothing somewhere's out of bounds. So let's continue to the next slide. So let's check what's inside some of those packages. We can see the browsers. We also need a version manager tool for Node, so we can change our versions or build new containers. And on top is the NPM tool, so we can build our app. What does Docker enables us here to do is to have an immutable setup. So if we build an image like this, we can call it latest, and we can be on the latest versions of all these tools, basically. And we can also have some previous versions where we tagged it with, for example, a Chrome version 70, for example, and we can use that for legacy testing or regression testing. Also, I would emphasize on the part, if you're not familiar with Docker, you can basically imagine it as a collection of software. So we build the image, and it has some tools in it, and we can literally press play and play the image. That's the abstract description of it. So, but when you create those images, don't overfill it, because containers are not VMs. So we don't want to do that. We can then use VMs, not containers. That's not the point. What tool would you use? So you can use any type of testing tool. You can use Cypress WebDriver, Nightwatch, Test Cafe, or you can use, for this example, Protractor, because it's the most simple setup of all of them. So it's if you create an Angular project with the ng command, it will create the stubs for you. It will already have a few tests in it. So that's what I did here, not to put emphasis on the coding, but on the testing framework. So let's see what's next. So this is the only diagram. that's going to be. So I'll try and explain the flow, what's going to happen with the image and the test. So basically, you have your dev PC, and for this stage, we're in development stage, and the containers that are going to spin on your machine. So there could be many of them or just one. It's not important. So what would you usually do? You would install the browser on your PC. You would install Node, NPM, keep the versions in sync with your colleagues, or at least try to keep them sync with your colleagues. And that's when the issues arise, when one colleague is on one version of Node, another is, for example, 10, and the other one is on 12. His code is working, the other one is not, and so on. So we will package those tools in the image, and we will run our tests inside of it. So we will trigger our command locally, like npm run protector, and that will trigger a shell script with, okay, it's more than a shell script, but the shell script will be passed into the Docker Entrypoint script. Who's not familiar with the Entrypoint script, it's basically a shell script that gets automatically started when the container spins up, and it can wait for more commands. So it will not just do something, but it will wait for you to give it a signal what to do. So it waits for us to tell them, okay, test the Angular stuff inside of you. So we will push the script inside. And then the tooling will do its thing there. So the protector will run inside the browser. Okay, so that was the overview. So there will not be a lot of code. This is who worked with JavaScript or Angular will know what a package.json is. It's a configuration file for those frameworks. And what does package.json have? It has more stuff down there, but I removed it. It has all the dependencies in it and so on. But this part here is the crucial part, the script stack. So we can build our test scripts like this. For example, we can create a script that's build Docker image. You basically type in npm build Docker image, and it will execute this command here. Or for example, the test. No one wants to type this into their command line. It's too much, so even I wouldn't remember all of it every time. So I just create a npm script protractor, and that will enable us to trigger the tests with this command here. And what will happen? We have prepared this service here, this XVFB. It's called X Virtual Frame Buffer. So it's a neat trick how to have GUI apps inside of Linux systems. Why that? Because we want to have a full-blown browser. So we want to test our end-to-end tests like the user would test them. So if you use headless browsers, you're not going to have the same results every time. So why again XVFB? Because Linux doesn't have displays. So you would have to install a machine and have it by yourself with a driver, with a graphics driver and everything set up. So this will mimic a virtual display, and so the Chrome or Firefox will start inside of it. That's executed from the Entrypoint script. So the script will automatically start the server and spin up Chrome in the next step. I will show it, and execute a test. So this is something I built in to just display the versions when you build it. It's not common, but just to show that you can do that to be consistent. And then the test will run inside the container. Basically, the output will look similar as in if you run them locally. So you can see that protractor will spin up the Node.js server on the local host, and it will use Chrome to execute the end-to-end test, basically. So that way you do not have to worry about keeping your versions on your PC in sync. Basically just push everything inside and it will provide the same output. Yeah, with this, you can have tooling audit because you keep your software as a code. So you have all of this inside of a Git. And when you change something, you can you know what changed. So if you change something inside of this and the build breaks, you know that probably something the package.json changed, or someone edited a command here. So easy to track down problems. Also, it's immutable. When you build an image, you will not it will not change. It's as is. It cannot change on the fly. So all software in there is embedded, and problems will not arise. Also, the best part for me is when you develop something locally for a setup like this, you already done the heavy lifting for CI/CD. Basically, you just play the same commands in Jenkins and it will work after you expose the Docker socket. So also parallelism is one thing. You could basically spin up 10 of these containers and run hundreds of tests in parallel to save time right away. So if you have 1,000 end-to-end tests, you could split them up and execute 10 of like 10 containers at once and save time. Also onboarding, that's also a cool thing. If you have distributed teams that change often, or you have vendors, you can provide your testing framework for them and they can onboard really quickly. So they don't have a week long setup, it's not working, I cannot install the tools, the button is not working in IntelliJ to test, and so on. So it's easier for them. But the major pitfall is it's a zero tolerance setup. What would that mean if something gets flaky here? For example, you miss one of these hyphens, it will break very badly. So you need to take care of that to make it stable. Maybe I will just return here to, is there anyone who didn't get this quite well? Maybe I could explain it once more. Is anyone working with Docker here? Yeah, I know you two are. So what could you do here in the next phase? So this is not only an Angular specific thing. You could basically push any kind of framework inside. So you could build your Spring Boot app. Imagine you run the Gradle command from here, and it will go straight inside, and here inside you would have a specific JDK version, Gradle wrapper versions, and you would instantly build the application inside, and you would get the artifacts deployed somewhere or stored on your disk, whatever you like. So it's not only an Angular thing. How much time do I have? Okay. Still have 5 minutes. So that's basically it for this. I made it short, not to bother you too much. But are there any questions, perhaps, from anyone? No. No questions. So you know everything. That's cool. Well, if no one has questions, then I don't have any questions anymore. I have some notes. Maybe I missed something. Yeah. There's actually one project which will use it actively. So there he is. There he is. And it's a funny thing, it's a .NET project. So .NET Core project that will that's building inside a container and also deploying it inside a container. So let's put the Docker here. So for them, I've built a custom image that has .NET Core inside of it and all the necessary tooling to run the microservice. So they're building a microservice architecture there, and it will have many of these containers that would get built. So specific for that project would be that all the software will be packaged inside of it. So it will not just execute a test, but it will also run the code in environments. So we have one container where you build the app, and you put it in one of those spare spaces here, and deploy it, for example, on Kubernetes, and you would have a auto-scaling application. So yeah, we have one of those, if it answers your question. There are some baselines I've created for using this in the company. So it wouldn't take long, but if it's a greenfield project, if it's a brownfield, implementing something after it's already developed and gone into testing phase, it would be a little bit painful to remove the stack and implement something new. It could cause not only people issues but technical issues. So, but in greenfield projects, it would be really nice to implement it right away and have everything top-notch from the start. You wanted to ask something, Professor?
Of course. Do you need a on-prem environment infrastructure for this, or can you move everything to the cloud?
You could basically move to the cloud. So if it's a microservice architecture based on Docker, you could use AWS right away, deploy it there on the Beanstalk service. Not sure for Azure, but you could also use on-premise cloud like Cloud Foundry, for example. You could build it yourself and have the container spin there. It's not an on-premise thing only. You can use cloud providers as well if you have the resources. Oh, you have a question. Nice. That's great.
So, what if our project and our users have a really complex VPN situation, and we cannot test the application without their VPN? Can we use this testing?
What do you mean you cannot test it with a VPN? What would that mean? You need to be connected to the VPN?
Yes.
It depends on the VPN connection, basically. If they allow you to go somewhere else, so if they tunnel everything through them, you will probably not get your work done because it will cut off your network interface, basically. But if they enable, I think it's called split brain, you would split tunnel. Thank you. So then it would work. Split brain is a DNS thing. Yeah, okay. Split tunnel, then it would work. You would have all your routes defined from before and not overwritten by the VPN manager, whatever that is, some router or whatever. So that's the problem. Depends only on the VPN. That's it? Yeah. You can clap now. It's okay. Thanks. Since I'm the last one, I think I need to thank you all for coming today. It was nice seeing you all. A lot of familiar faces from all the places I worked at. So that's also great to see you all. Hope to see you and grab a beer afterwards. So thanks for coming. If you have any questions, you can contact me on LinkedIn. That's okay if you do that.
Thank you very much. This is all for the today's conference. I hope we'll see each other next year as well. Thank you very much.